Moral relativism is an irrational position to follow, and we show that in this video. But is objective morality any better? Many philosophers claim to know how we can arrive at what's true, but which philosophy should we follow? Are we even obligated to follow any? In this video, we'll show why every secular theory of morality fails at that very point, and why only one solution remains. We'll use pure logic, no theology, no emotional appeal, to show that not only does objective morality exist, but that you are rationally bound to follow it. When philosophers talk about objective morality, most secular perspectives fall into one of two categories: rational necessity and natural necessity. Rational necessity philosophies often compare moral truths to mathematical truths. If you think clearly enough, you can perceive moral truths just as you can perceive mathematical truths. These philosophies typically say that reason itself binds us, that a rational being, to be consistent with his rationality, must treat other rational beings as ends, not as means. Because to exploit or to deceive another person is to contradict the very principle that you rely on when you expect others to treat you rationally and fairly. They usually arrive at their moral truths through intuition or reason. Take lying, for example. How do we know that lying is wrong? Well, let's suppose that it's true. It is right to lie to get what I want. It's an objective, true statement. However, effective lying depends on the other person thinking that you are telling the truth, or else the lie won't work. If the entire world, though, espouses the idea it's right to lie to get what I want, then nobody will trust each other, and thus lying collapses as a possibility. So lying to get what I want ends up contradicting itself. And that's how we know that lying to get what I want is not an objective moral truth. You can also take murder. If everybody murdered, then there wouldn't be any life. And murder depends on life. So murder also can't be an objective moral truth. Now, natural necessity philosophies, by contrast, say that moral truths come from the type of creatures we are, comes from what allows us to function properly. Human nature, they argue, has built-in purposes. We're rational, social, moral beings by design. Doing good means fulfilling those purposes. A virtuous life is human flourishing. Thus, lying and murder aren't wrong because they're logically contradictory, but because they don't allow for human flourishing. Now, following these secular moral objective philosophies will definitely cause one to receive merit, but all of them can't answer one question. Why are you obligated? For example, why are you obligated to follow your reason? You can't give me a reason to follow my reason, or else that'll just be circular reasoning. If I say, nah, I don't follow reason, you can't give me a reason to follow reason. Or another, you can't claim that we must care about human flourishing without first assuming that caring is obligatory. These philosophies have what you might call a motivation gap. They can tell you what makes sense, but not why you must obey it. Sure, we can say that a rational person should act rationally, but what if I don't care about being rational? What if I understand morality, but I just simply refuse to submit to it? So again, the biggest problem. Reason can tell you what is true and consistent. Authority, though, tells you that you must act accordingly. Now, Immanuel Kant, one of the philosophers that espoused these objective reason philosophies, tried to merge the two. That reason itself is its own authority, calling it the autonomy of reason. But again, that assumes that every rational being cares about being consistent. Many don't. Think about psychopaths, tyrants, or even take ordinary people in moment of temptation. They can recognize the logic of morality and still just reject it. So why should they be obligated to follow what reason reveals? Because reason can't give a reason to follow itself, to avoid circular reasoning, we must look outside the system. This is where all of these philosophies need God. Reason may reveal the moral law, but the obligation to follow that law can only arise because it is the will of the Creator that we do so. But let's step back so that we can make this philosophy airtight. Reason only works because the universe is rationally ordered. Logic, mathematics, science, they only work because reality behaves consistently. If the world were fundamentally chaotic, with no regularity, no cause and effect, no stable identities, logic and science would fail instantly. But they don't. They work astonishingly well. And even if our minds evolve to detect these regularities and order, that still presupposes that the regularities and order exist to be detected. So we must ask, why does nature have an intelligible design? Either the intelligibility was created without intelligence, or the intelligibility was created with intelligence. The most reasonable answer seems to be that intelligibility was created with intelligence. Since we know that we are created and that this universe is rationally ordered, it follows that our creator must be intelligent and rational. Now, nothing in the universe sustains itself. Every part of it is dependent. And if everything depends on something else, the chain can't go on forever. It must terminate in a being whose very nature is to exist. That being is who we call God. But because we know that our Creator God is continually willing everything in existence, it follows that He is continually willing order. Rational order, then, is not just merely a fact of nature, it is an expression of divine will. So when we follow reason and live in harmony with rational order, we are, in effect, following the will of God. And when we follow reason, we also follow morality, because morality is reason applied to action. As Maimonides taught, what is right and good is not separate from God. God and what is right and good are the same. To follow what is right and good is to follow God. But this all leads to a deeper question. Why follow God's will? First, everything that exists, including us, depends continually on God's willing it to exist. If God stopped willing our existence, we would instantly cease to be. His will, therefore, is the ground of our being. To act against His will is to act against ourselves. It's like a fish rebelling against water. It's a contradiction in terms. If your existence depends on something, that thing defines the very conditions for your existence. It's what allows you to exist. To act against those conditions is to act against yourself. It's to act against what makes your being possible. So by willing against God's will, you are willing your own destruction because you're willing against the cause of your existence, while also still willing to exist. You're alive while making these claims. It doesn't make sense. You're willing against your existence while still existing. But someone might say, I don't care about making sense. But then that's the end of the discussion. That's like saying, I know 2 + 2 = 4, but I'll live as if it equals 3. You can say it, but you can't live it coherently. For example, reason tells you that if you jump off a skyscraper, you will likely die. Thus, if you want to exist, you should not jump off the skyscraper. Now, to go against your reason, you would have to say, in order to exist, I'm going to jump off the skyscraper. Now, if you do that, you're done. It's the same thing. You're using reason to will against reason. Because if you truly abandon coherence, you destroy the very ground of all claims, whether they're moral, rational, even empirical. You can no longer argue that something is good, true, or even real. Yeah, you could choose irrationality, but you can't justify it or even communicate it effectively. But we can take why we follow God even further. Because rationality is the function that defines our essence, it's the trait that distinguishes us from all animals. Acting rationally is acting in accordance with our design. To live by reason, then, is to function properly as the kind of being that God created us to be. Following reason, then, fulfills our purpose. Rejecting reason or moral truth is self-contradictory because it uses the very faculty of reason to deny the reality that makes reasoning possible. Lastly, if God is the source of all existence and rational order, then both truth, what is real, and goodness, what fulfills its proper function, share the same root, God Himself. To obey God's will, then, is to follow what is both true and good. Thus, when you live in accordance with goodness, you live in accordance with truth, and thus you align yourself with reality. Again, to reject that order is to reject reality. And if you reject reality, you reject yourself. Another contradiction. So that was a lot. Let's summarize what we just went over step by step. Reason can't justify its own authority. You can't give a reason to follow reason without circular reasoning. Reason only works because our world is rationally ordered. That intelligibility, the rational order, must come from an intelligent source. We know order doesn't arise from chaos. The rational structure of the universe points to a rational creator. That creator continually wills the rational order of existence. Therefore, when we follow rationality and reason, and by extension morality, we follow the will of our creator. Morality is reason applied to action, and reason is divine order in motion. Why follow God's will? Because His will is the ground of our being. To act against His will is to act against the very structure that sustains you. It's a literal contradiction. By following reason, however, we align our will with the wisdom that sustains all things. Lastly, moral obligation can only exist if God exists. Without a rational, sustaining creator, truth, goodness, and obligation dissolve into arbitrary preferences. But in this video, we cover why God must exist. And this video kind of already showed that he exists. So through this video, we have logically shown that God is essential to moral obligation. We know that moral relativism isn't rational. Moral objectivity theories often fail in obligation, but a moral objectivity theory grounded in God's will is the most complete and rational position to follow. But there are yet still questions that we haven't answered. How do we know exactly what these moral truths are? Sure, reason can guide us, but Nazi Germany thought that they were the most rational state, and look where they ended up. For the answers to these questions, subscribe to stay tuned. I'm trying to also cater to wise Noahides, those that follow the 7 Noahide laws just out of pure reason alone, as well as righteous Noahides. We don't follow these rational laws just because it's reasonable. At the end of the day, we follow them because God gave them to Moses at Mount Sinai. But there is one aspect that the Jewish sages point to as a reason for us to follow God's commands, which will be for righteous Noahides. And I'll, again, get into that in another video. Hopefully this all made sense. Please let me know down in the comments if it didn't, or if the logic is messed up. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, as always, for watching.